Hi guys, welcome to my channel. So this is chapter 9, homeostasis and hormonal control. Okay, and this is part 1 in this video. I have split this chapter into 4 parts. And before I begin, right, I would like you to note that this chapter is only for G3 pure biology students. Okay? So as mentioned, I have split this chapter into 4 parts. For this video, I will just be talking about part 1, the concept of homeostasis and negative feedback. Okay, so let's begin. But before we begin, let's talk about the syllabus. Okay, candidates must define homeostasis. So you must be able to write the definition of homeostasis as the maintenance of a constant internal environment. Okay, you must also explain the basic principles of homeostasis in terms of certain terms like stimulus, okay, a change in the internal environment, a corrective mechanism, and of course, the negative feedback mechanism. So let's start with the definition, okay? Homeostasis is the maintenance of a constant internal environment, right? So this one, right, this line has three important things, okay? So the word maintenance has to be there. It has to be our internal environment has to be maintained, all right, and it has to be of a constant level, okay. And when we talk about internal environment, right, we refer to the environment inside our body. So this maintenance, right, ensures that the internal environment, right, is kept within narrow limits. Okay, so I also want to clarify at this point that it is not a constant line if you want to think about it from a graph point of view, okay, it is always going up and down. Our internal environment, right, is always fluctuating. If it's going up, something must be done to push it down. If it's going down, something must be done to push it up, so that they are always hovering around a constant value. Okay, example, body temperature. Okay, our body temperature has to be constant at 36.9 degrees Celsius. The water potential of the blood and tissue fluid is also important in trying to keep constant. And finally, our blood glucose level, right, is also important in such a way that they cannot hover too much. They are sometimes it's going up, sometimes it's going down, but this up and down, right, this fluctuation is of a constant value. Okay, this is what it means. So this will ensure, right, that the organism be independent from changes in the environment. Okay, so if the outside environment is always changing, right, our body will always remain constant, okay, and regulated. Okay, so outside environment can refer to outside temperature. It can also refer to food intake, so on and so forth. So let's talk about negative feedback. All right, homeostasis, right, involves this very important mechanism known as negative feedback. Okay, and I believe a lot of you are confused about this. All right, so when there are changes detected in the internal environment, right, when the internal environment is fluctuating too high or too low, okay, special cells in our body, right, which we call receptors, they will detect. And when they detect, right, the body will then carry out a series of corrective mechanism in response to the stimulus. Okay, so this line is a little bit technical, right? But this is actually what it means. Okay, once you get a hang of it, right, you probably can understand it better. So this corrective mechanism, right, will bring about a reverse effect on the stimulus. Okay, so it will negate the stimulus, and through this negation, right, through this reverse effect, the internal environment, right, will be restored back to normal. Okay, when the internal environment, right, reaches the normal condition, a feedback is then sent to the receptor to stop the corrective mechanism. Okay, it is to prevent the receptor, right, from keep on being activated. All right, if the receptor keep on being activated, right, then the body will go into what we call a positive feedback, which is not good. All right, so this is what it meant. Let me give you some examples of negative feedback, okay, in this video. Okay, I will give you three. Two of them are not related to biology. So let me start with air conditioning in the room. Okay, I believe most of you have experienced air cons in the room, and Some air conditioners, right, or rather you can set the aircon to a specific temperature. Okay, so for example, right, I want to set my aircon to keep the room at 24 degrees Celsius. If the outside temperature of the room is 30 degrees, right, the air conditioner will automatically switch on. Okay, so you have probably seen this kind of energy saving aircon before. So let's say I want to set my room at 24, but outside is 30 degrees. So because of heat coming into the room, right, the room will slowly increase in temperature, correct? So the aircon will detect this increase in temperature, and then the aircon will automatically switch on. Okay, and of course when the aircon switch on, the room temperature will start to drop. When the room temperature drops to 24, right, some of you might notice that this particular aircon will turn off automatically because the room is 24 degrees Celsius already. Okay, so there is no need for the aircon to keep on blowing cold air because the room has hit the 24 degrees Celsius mark. And so the aircon will turn off. Okay, then slowly, right, if the room becomes colder and colder and colder, okay, the aircon will automatically switch on again, and it will this time it will blow hot air and it will bring the temperature up to 24 degrees. And once it hit 24 degrees again, then it will switch off. Okay, this is an example of negative feedback. And let me give you another example, driving. Okay, or when you are not driving yet, or maybe you have driven a go-kart, or maybe you have experienced people driving. So driving can also be an example of negative feedback. Okay, so when the person is driving, right, sometimes the person will subconsciously increase the speed. Okay, so sometimes you will be probably daydream, right, and then you realize that your car is going faster and faster and faster. So if you are on the expressway and the speed limit is 80 kilometers per hour, for example, okay, and once you realize that you are driving too fast, right, you will automatically slow down because you do not want to get fined, right? Or you do not want to get into a car accident. So once you know that your car is going above 80 kilometers per hour, you will slow down until 80, correct? And then you will continue to drive. Okay, so this is, yeah, something like this. Sometimes, right, you are probably daydreaming and then you realize that your car is going very slow. Okay, you are not hitting the speed limit of the road. So if you realize this, right, you will automatically speed up again. Okay, you will speed up to 80 kilometer per hour. So again, right, driving is like a fluctuation of speed, and the speed limit is 80 kilometer per hour. So sometimes when you go too fast, you will slow down. Sometimes when you go too slow, you will speed up. All right, and this is again another a classic example of negative feedback. Now finally, right, let me give you an example of negative feedback in the body. Okay, I use the example of scratching and itch. Okay, so imagine, right, someone tickles your arm with a feather. Now this is known as a stimulus, okay, because the feather, right, through touching of the skin will start to create a reaction. Now this reaction, right, this detection of the feather touching your skin, right, is actually picked up by a special cell, or rather a nerve ending in under the skin, and these are known as receptors. Okay, they will detect this stimulus, and what they do, right, is they will send a message to the brain. The brain, right, will interpret this message, and the brain will decide, right, if it is normal, which means that you will not do anything because the stimulation of a feather on your skin is not important, or the brain can decide, right, that something has to be done. Okay, for example, if someone is stroking your skin and you are feeling the itch, right, the brain is has interpreted it as being itchy. Okay, and the next thing you know, the brain will send a message to the muscles in your hand, and your hand will scratch the area of itch. Okay, you will scratch until the itch disappears. And when the itch disappears, right, the receptors on that area will send a message to the brain to tell the brain to stop the hand from continuing to scratch. Okay, and this means that the itch is gone and the scratching ends. All right, so when the scratching ends, right, it means that it is undergoing negative feedback. Okay, so yeah, I try to explain to you what negative feedback is, and I normally use the example of a itch to explain. If you keep scratching non-stop, then you will create a wound, okay, is because, right, there is no negative feedback. So normally when you're scratching, right, you will stop scratching when the itch disappears, okay? And so this is an example of a corrective mechanism. So let me run through negative feedback in general again, okay? So when there is a change in the normal level, right? When there is a change in the normal level, okay, due to a stimulus, it will be detected by a receptor cell. Okay, in biology, it will be detected by a sensory receptor cell. And then, right, this receptor cell, right, will kickstart a series of events that the body will take, okay, to correct this mechanism. And this sequence of events, right, will counteract the change. It will stop the change and it will reverse the change until, right, the normal level is restored again. Until, for example, you are no longer feeling itchy. Okay? Upon restoration of the normal level, the moment you are not feeling itchy, a feedback is being sent to the receptor to stop the chain of events. Okay, it means that the cycle has completed, and so there is no need to continue to go on with the cycle. This is also taken from the textbook, and so this is a diagram to show you, right, how negative feedback is. Okay, so our body is always at normal. Okay, sometimes when there is a stimulation, a series of mechanisms will occur to bring the body back to normal. Okay, sometimes it is in reverse. All right, so it all depends on the scenario. Okay, so this is what it means by negative feedback. So yeah, I guess that's it. Okay, in this video I try to explain to you the concept of homeostasis and the mechanism of negative feedback. You have to learn how to apply it, of course, but I think it's a little bit difficult, I know, and I hope this video helps. Okay, all right, that's it. Thank you. Bye bye.